Welcome to the Science of Hockey, the podcast where we break down the science behind ice hockey. I'm the analyst, your host, and every week we explore the data, research, and evidence that shape how we play, train, and understand the game of hockey. From biomechanics to performance psychology, we take you beyond the rink and into the research lab, giving you insights that go beyond hearsay and into what really makes the difference on the ice. Whether you're a player, a coach, a parent, or just someone passionate about the sport, we're here to bring you scientifically backed information in a language that's friendly and easy to understand. So grab your skates and let's dive into the science of hockey. Hello, hockey fans. This is the Science of Hockey. I'm the analyst. Today, we're exploring the science of ice hockey goaltenders, their unique physiology, specialized training needs, and what it takes to excel in the crease.
All right, time to suit up and head into the crease because today we're taking a deep dive into the world of ice hockey goaltenders.
Exploring the unique physiology.
Exactly. You requested a look behind the mask at what makes these athletes tick.
We're going beyond those incredible saves and into the science of what sets these players apart.
And our source. A fascinating systematic review and meta-analysis from the International Journal of Exercise Science.
All about goaltender physiology.
You want to understand what makes their physical demands different from everyone else flying around the ice.
So we'll break down their strengths, weaknesses,
Yeah.
maybe even uncover some training insights.
Cool.
Now, got to be upfront, the research mainly looks at male players. We've got limited data on the women and men.
Yeah, a gap for sure, but we'll make sure to highlight what is known about female goalies along the way.
Absolutely.
First, though, even us casual fans can see hockey's gotten faster, more offensive.
Oh, yeah, way more.
Has that changed what it takes to be a goalie?
Absolutely. Rule changes, like the ones back in the 2005-2006 NHL season, really ramped up offensive play. Teams went from an average of 348 power plays per season to a whopping 480.
Wow, that's a huge jump.
Huge.
So way more action in front of the net for the goalie to deal with.
Way more chaos.
Makes sense why fitness would need to be top-notch these days.
Precisely. And it's not just raw endurance anymore. It's about going from 0 to 100 in a flash, recovering quickly, and being ready for the next onslaught.
Yeah.
All while keeping that mental edge, almost like a sprinter who also needs to be a chess grandmaster.
Quite the combo. Okay, let's talk size. I always picture goalies as these imposing figures. What's the research say?
The bigger is better idea isn't as straightforward as you'd think. Height-wise, pro and amateur male goalies average around 184, 185 centimeters.
Oh, so pretty similar then.
Surprisingly similar, yeah.
So tall, definitely, but not necessarily towering over everyone else.
Right, and here's the interesting part. They're often the tallest on the team now, which wasn't always the case.
So are we seeing the ideal goalie physique change right before our eyes?
It's a great question.
What could be causing that?
It could be bigger nets, more traffic around the crease. Maybe height gives an advantage for seeing through the chaos.
Oh, yeah. Makes
Controlling
sense.
rebounds, maybe even just that imposing factor we talked about.
Right.
It's definitely something to think about.
Like evolution on ice. What about weight? I guess all that gear adds up.
Pro goalies are heavier than amateurs, probably from more training, muscle mass.
Okay.
But whether they're heavier overall compared to other players, the research isn't clear.
So maybe the big hulking goalie stereotype isn't always true.
Maybe not.
What about body fat percentage? I've always wondered if that extra padding could help absorb those puck impacts.
Goalies do have a higher percentage of body fat compared to forwards or defensemen.
Oh, interesting.
Less need for those long skating sprints.
Right.
They don't need to be as lean.
So not just about being big, but having the right kind of mass. But does that extra padding actually protect them?
That's a great question. The research doesn't really answer. But think about it. They're basically a human shock absorber.
Yeah, that's true.
Constantly bracing for impact.
Makes you wonder if it's a subconscious adaptation to the role.
Yeah.
No, grip strength's got to be crucial, right?
You'd think so. And pros do have a stronger grip than amateurs. But here's the kicker. Studies show grip strength might be even more important for forwards and defensemen.
Really? Why is that? You'd think stopping those crazy shots would need an iron grip.
It's less about resisting force, more about generating it. Think wrist shots, slap shots.
Right.
A powerful grip means a more explosive release. More energy into the puck.
Interesting.
So goalies need a strong grip, but it seems even more vital for offensive players.
Fascinating. Really highlights how different positions, even in the same sport, need different physical traits.
Exactly. And that brings us to our next question. Are goalies endurance machines, or is their game more about those bursts of energy?
That's what I'm curious about. Let's break it down.
So when we look at aerobic fitness, you might expect professional goalies to be the endurance kings, right?
Yeah, I would think so.
Spending hours on cardio to keep up with the game's demands. But the research actually shows amateur male goalies have higher VO2 max than the pros.
Higher VO2 max. Okay, break that down for me. What does that actually mean in the context of hockey?
VO2 max is basically how efficiently your body uses oxygen during intense exercise. It's often seen as a marker of your overall aerobic fitness.
So the amateurs are outperforming the pros in oxygen efficiency. That's kind of surprising.
Yeah, a little counterintuitive.
Any ideas why?
A couple things could be going on. Maybe professional goalies focus more on their technique, their strategy,
Yeah.
those specialized movements, rather than pure cardio endurance.
Right.
They're not sprinting up and down the ice like forwards.
Right.
Their movements are more explosive, but with more frequent pauses.
Yeah.
You know?
So it's about efficiency and targeted training rather than just racking up miles on the treadmill.
Right.
It makes sense when you think about what their position actually demands.
Absolutely. And it goes back to what we were saying about how the game's changed.
Yeah.
More power plays, those chaotic scrums in front of the net. They need a different kind of fitness.
It's all about that quick burst, recover, repeat, right?
Exactly.
Sounds like the anaerobic energy system might be even more important for today's goalies.
Absolutely. And here's where things get even more interesting. Goalies rarely get those big spikes in blood lactate that we see in other players.
Decode that for me. What's blood lactate telling us, and why is it interesting that goalies aren't getting those big jumps?
Lactate buildup is basically a byproduct of intense anaerobic exercise. It's what causes that burning feeling in your muscles when you push yourself hard.
Oh, right.
So if goalies aren't getting those spikes, even in those crazy moments, what does that tell us?
Yeah, what does that mean?
It suggests they're recovering really fast between bursts of activity. Their muscles are clearing that lactate out, letting them get back in position for the next save.
So it's like they've got a turbocharger for recovery.
You could say that.
Not just powerful, but able to use that power over and over.
Exactly.
Okay, so speaking of bursts of energy, let's talk about anaerobic power itself. You know, those quick reflexes, the explosive movements. Are pro goalies just naturals in that department?
They do have a slight edge over amateurs in tests measuring anaerobic power.
Okay.
Probably from all those years of training focused on speed and agility.
Right.
But there's a twist. A longer wind gate test that's 45 seconds versus the standard 30 showed no difference in anaerobic power between goalies and other players.
So are we saying the type of anaerobic training might actually be more important than just raw power output?
That's what the research is suggesting. It's not just about overall anaerobic capacity,
Okay.
but about being able to generate and sustain power in those short game realistic intervals.
Cool. Okay, so we've talked about the big picture size, strength, and these different energy systems. But what about those movements we picture when we think of goalies?
Yeah.
The lightning fast drops, those sprawling saves. I imagine core strength and flexibility are huge. What's the research say?
You're spot on. Those are absolutely essential for a goalie's success.
Okay.
Let's start with abdominal endurance, which is crucial for stability, those quick changes in direction. Pro goalies, no surprise here, have much greater abdominal endurance than amateurs.
So those core workouts are more than just about looking good.
No, they're foundational for performing well on the crease.
Gotcha.
Now, when we look at leg power, measured by vertical jump performance, it's actually pretty similar across all the positions.
Oh,
Which means lower body power is important for everyone on the ice.
right, of course. But goalies aren't doing your typical jumping jacks out there.
Exactly. Think about those constant drops into the butterfly.
Right.
That's a special kind of lower body strength that needs specific training.
Right.
And then there's flexibility. They've got to be almost like contortionists
Almost.
to make some of those saves.
Oh, for sure.
You're not exaggerating. They need incredible hip mobility.
Okay.
Not just for reaching those pucks, but also getting back up quickly and back into position. And there's also a health aspect here.
Oh, right. Injuries. I remember something about FAI being more common in goalies. Can you refresh my memory on that? How does flexibility factor in?
Sure. FAI stands for femoroacetabular impingement.
Okay.
Basically, it's when the bones in your hip joint rub abnormally,
Oh, ouch.
causing pain and limiting movement. Goalies, with their extreme hip movements, are more likely to get it.
So good hip mobility isn't just about playing better. It could actually help prevent injury and lengthen their career.
Exactly. And this brings us to a key point about how we assess and train goalies. A lot of the standard fitness tests we use in hockey are designed with forwards and defensemen in mind.
You're going to say those tests don't really translate to what goalies actually do?
That's the thing. Imagine a goalie doing a sprint test. Useful info, but it doesn't reflect what they actually do on the ice.
Yeah, totally.
We need testing that's specific to goalies, that captures those unique movements and energy demands.
So agility drills, reaction time tests, things that actually look like what they're doing in the crease.
Exactly. And this goes straight back to your request. You wanted to understand what makes these athletes unique and how we can train them better.
Yeah.
By recognizing these demands, we can change how we approach goalie training programs.
Moving beyond just generic strength and conditioning.
Exactly. Prioritizing core strength, hip mobility, that quick recovery after those explosive bursts.
So training the athlete for their specific role.
Precise.
Not just for general fitness.
Right. So if we're talking about what someone could actually do to improve goalie training, what are the main things to focus on? Number one, emphasize core strength and hip mobility. Lots of planks, Russian twists, dynamic stretching for the hips.
Yeah, build that strong foundation.
Right. Next, incorporate anaerobic training that mimics those short, intense bursts they face in games. Sprints, plyometrics, agility drills, all tailored to those game-like intervals.
Okay.
And super important, build in those recovery periods.
Right. Got to have that recovery.
They got to be able to bounce back quickly.
So quality over quantity and understanding that rest is important too.
Exactly.
What else should coaches be thinking about?
Drills that challenge reaction time and decision-making. Having them track multiple objects, make saves while there are distractions.
Okay.
It's about training the mind as well as the body.
Mental and physical. Got it.
Right. Now, we've talked a lot about male goalies. What about women?
Yeah, what about the women in net?
The research, like we said, is lacking on female players. But is there anything we can take away from what's available?
I'm curious.
One key finding is that amateur female goalies tend to have a higher percentage of body fat than their male counterparts,
Oh, interesting.
even though they're generally lighter and shorter.
So a different body composition, despite maybe having similar training.
Yeah, it's really interesting.
What could explain that difference?
We need more research, for sure. It could be hormonal factors, how muscle mass is distributed differently, or even just differences in how women are being trained at that level.
It shows how important it is to have more research on female athletes.
Absolutely.
We can't just assume what works for men will automatically work for women.
Couldn't agree more.
We need data, not assumptions.
Right. And it's important to remember these findings are about amateur female goalies.
Right.
We don't know if those same trends hold true at the pro level,
Good point.
where the training resources and standards might be totally different.
There's still so much we need to learn about the physiology of female goaltenders.
Yeah.
Now, before we wrap up, I want to go back to something you said earlier about goalie-specific testing. You mentioned some examples like agility drills and reaction time tests. Can you expand on what those could look like and why they're so important?
Absolutely. The key is to design tests that actually mirror the demands of goaltending.
Yeah, I like that.
Instead of a regular sprint test, imagine a drill where the goalie has to move quickly across the crease, side to side, like they're facing a cross-crease pass.
So we're measuring their explosiveness, how quickly they can change direction, their balance skills they use every game.
Exactly. For reaction time, it's not just about how fast they react to one thing,
Okay.
but how they respond to more complex dynamic situations. Think about a drill where they have to track multiple pucks coming from different angles,
Oh, wow. Okay.
kind of like the chaos in front of the net during a power play.
So we're training their eyes, their brain, to process information fast and make decisions under pressure.
Right. And for hip mobility, we got to go beyond those basic flexibility tests.
Okay.
Think about assessing the range of motion while they're actually dropping into the butterfly, getting back up, then making a save.
Interesting.
It's about how they move in real life, not just how far they can stretch in one position.
So connecting those assessments back to what's actually happening in the game.
Exactly. That's why testing that's specific to goalies is so important.
Yeah.
We need to find those subtle differences, those hidden talents that we might miss with more general tests.
So we can help goalies reach their full potential.
Precisely. Whether they're aiming for the NHL or just trying to be their best in their local league.
It's about customizing training programs.
Absolutely.
Recognizing that not all athletes are the same, even within the same position.
I couldn't have said it better myself.
Back again for our final period on the deep dive.
And we've been exploring the fascinating world of goaltender physiology.
Uncovering what sets these athletes apart.
We've seen how their bodies adapt to the demands of the game.
Right.
Those incredible reflexes, that ability to recover so quickly after those bursts of energy.
Yeah.
But as we wrap up, I want to circle back to something we touched on earlier, the mental side of goaltending.
Yeah.
It often gets overlooked,
Right.
but it's arguably the most important part of a goalie's success.
It's like playing high-stakes chess while dodging bullets at the same time.
Perfect analogy.
The pressure is insane.
Think about it. They're the last line of defense.
Yeah.
One mistake can be the difference between winning and losing.
Right.
The whole team, the fans, everyone's counting on them.
And unlike other players, their mistakes are right there for everyone to see.
No hiding.
They can't blend into the flow of the game.
Nope.
It's a lonely position, both physically and mentally.
Absolutely. And that isolation can actually make the pressure even worse. They're out there on their own,
Yeah.
facing some of the fastest, most powerful shots in sports.
Right.
It takes a special kind of mental strength to handle that.
So how do we even begin to understand that level of mental toughness, let alone train for it? Is it something you're just born with? Or can you develop it?
That's the question everyone wants to know, right?
Yeah.
Some people might be naturally better at handling pressure.
Okay.
But the research is showing more and more that mental resilience can be trained.
Like a muscle.
Exactly. Just like physical training, you need to practice, repeat, and keep pushing yourself to get better.
So what does that kind of training look like? What helps goalies develop that mental edge?
Visualization is one technique.
Okay.
It's used by athletes in all kinds of sports, including hockey.
Yeah.
Goalies can use it to rehearse game situations in their minds.
Oh, okay.
Imagine themselves making those big saves.
So they build confidence.
Right, exactly. It's like they're creating a mental plan for success.
I like that.
Then there's mindfulness, which helps athletes stay present, focus on what they're doing,
Right.
and block out distractions.
Okay.
In a high-pressure game, being able to stay calm and focused can make all the difference.
Makes sense.
And then there are drills specifically designed to challenge a goalie's mental toughness.
Like what?
Imagine a goalie practicing saves while loud music is playing, or there are people trying to distract them.
Oh, wow.
So they're getting used to pressure in a controlled environment.
Like exposure therapy.
Kind of.
Yeah.
As they get used to it, their confidence grows.
Yeah.
They learn to trust their instincts, rely on their training, and perform even under pressure.
So it's really interesting how physical and mental training are connected.
Definitely.
They're not separate things at all. They work together.
And when they're in sync, that's when you see those amazing performances.
And that's what makes goaltending so fascinating to study.
It really is.
It's a combination of physical skill, technical ability, and mental toughness. So as we wrap up our deep dive today,
Yeah.
I'm just in awe of these athletes,
Cool.
not just for their athleticism,
Right.
but for their resilience, their dedication,
Integrating.
and their ability to perform under that kind of pressure.
I hope this deep dive has given you, our listeners, a new appreciation for these amazing athletes in this demanding position.
Yeah, it's about understanding that there's so much more to goaltending than just stopping the puck.
It's the science, the strategy, the mental game, all coming together.
Creating these remarkable athletes.
Maybe this will even inspire you to look at other sports in a different way.
Yeah, appreciate those hidden complexities and challenges.
Because the world of sports science is huge. And there's always something new to discover.
So stay curious, keep exploring, and we'll see you next time on The Deep Dive.
Thanks for listening.
Thanks for tuning in to the Science of Hockey. If you enjoyed today's episode, make sure to share it with your friends, teammates, or anyone who loves hockey as much as you do. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode. And we'd love to hear from you. Leave a comment to let us know what you liked, what you'd like to hear next, or any questions you have. Your feedback helps us make the show even better. Until next time, keep your skates sharp, your mind open, and keep chasing the science behind the game.